And she conceived again and gave birth to a son, but circumcised his foreskin and called his name Eliezer. For Moses said, because the God of my fathers was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh king of Egypt greatly increased the labor of the children of Israel in those days, and continued to make his yoke heavier on the children of Israel. And he ordered an announcement to be made in Egypt, saying, give no more straw to the people to make bricks with. Let them go and gather themselves straw, as they can find it. Also the number of bricks which they shall make, let them give each day, and diminish nothing from them, for they are idle in their work. And the children of Israel heard this, and they mourned and sighed, and they cried to the Lord on account of the bitterness of their souls. And the Lord heard the cries of the children of Israel, and saw the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. And the Lord was zealous for his people and his inheritance, and heard their voice. And he resolved to take them out of the affliction of Egypt, to give them the land of Canaan for a possession. In those days Moses was feeding the flock of Reuel the Midianite, his father-in-law, beyond the wilderness of Sin, Sion. And the stick which he took from his father-in-law was in his hand. And it came to pass one day that a kid of goats strayed from the flock, and Moses pursued it, and it came to the mountain of God, to Horeb. When he came to Horeb, the Lord appeared there to him in the bush, and he found the bush burning with fire, but the fire had no power over the bush to consume it. Moses was greatly astonished at this sight, because the bush was not consumed, and he approached to see this mighty thing. The Lord called to Moses out of the fire, and commanded him to go down to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to send the children of Israel from his service. And the Lord said to Moses, go, return to Egypt, for all those men who sought your life are dead, and you shall speak to Pharaoh to send forth the children of Israel from his land. The Lord showed him to do signs and wonders in Egypt, before the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his subjects, in order that they might believe that the Lord had sent him. Moses listened to all that the Lord had commanded him, and he returned to his father-in-law and told him these things. And Reuel said to him, go in peace. Moses rose up to go to Egypt, and took his wife and sons with him. He was at an inn in the road, and an angel of God came down and sought an occasion against him. He wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son, because he had not circumcised him and had gone contrary to the covenant which the Lord had made with Abraham. For Moses had listened to the words of his father-in-law, which he had spoken to him not to circumcise his firstborn son, so he did not circumcise him. Zipporah saw the angel of the Lord seeking an occasion against Moses, and she knew that this thing was because of his not having circumcised her son Gershom. Zipporah hurried and took some of the sharp rock stones that were there, and circumcised her son, and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the angel of the Lord. Aaron, son of Amram, brother of Moses, was in Egypt, walking at the river side that day. And the Lord appeared to him in that place. He said to him, go now toward Moses in the wilderness. And he went and met him in the mountain of God, and he kissed him. Aaron lifted up his eyes and saw Zipporah, wife of Moses, and her children. And he said to Moses, who are these to you? And Moses said to him, they are my wife and sons, which God gave to me in Midian. The thing grieved Aaron on account of the women, her children. Aaron said to Moses, send away the women and her children, that they may go to her father's house. And Moses listened to the words of Aaron and did so. Zipporah returned with her children, and they went to the house of Reuel. and remained there until the time arrived when the Lord had visited his people and brought them forth from Egypt from the hand of Pharaoh. Moses and Aaron came to Egypt, to the community of the children of Israel, and spoke to them all the words of the Lord, and the people rejoiced, a very great rejoicing. Moses and Aaron rose up early the next day and went to the house of Pharaoh, and they took in their hands the stick of God. When they came to the king's gate, 2 young lions were confined there with iron instruments. No person went out or came in from before them, unless those whom the king ordered to come. When the conjurers came and withdrew the lions by their incantations, and this brought them to the king, Moses hurried and lifted up the stick on the lions and loosed them, and Moses and Aaron came into the king's house. The lions also came with him with them in joy, and they followed them and rejoiced as a dog rejoices over his master when he comes from the field. When Pharaoh saw this thing, he was astonished at it, and was greatly terrified at the report, for their appearance was like the appearance of the children of God. And Pharaoh said to Moses, "What do you require?" And they answered him, saying, "The Lord God of the Hebrews has sent us to you, to say, 'Send forth my people, that they may serve me.'" When Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them. And he said to them, "Go today and come back to me tomorrow." And they did according to the word of the king. When they had gone, Pharaoh sent for Balaam the magician, and to Jannes and Jambres his sons, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king. They all came and sat before the king. And the king told them all the words which Moses and his brother Aaron had spoken to him. The magicians said to the king, "But how could the men come to you on account of the lions which were confined at the gate?" The king said, "Because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them, and came to me. And the lions also rejoiced at them as a dog rejoices to meet his master." Balaam the son of Beor the magician answered the king, saying, "There are none other than magicians like ourselves."